Wachovia in Bank of America turning a big, huge fight over the years between two strong-willed CEOs, not the current ones, but turned Charlotte into a banking rival of New York City. Well, we've got something today, kind of a shock from Charlotte. I call it the shocker from Charlotte. Ken Thompson ousted unceremoniously by the board of directors, asking for an immediate retirement, resignation, whatever you want to call it. Interim will be replaced by Lanty Smith. And then this other guy, Ben Jenkins, is becoming COO, and that's the name on some people's lips. But Becky made a good point. If you don't know who you're going to pick right now, why move so quickly?
Hey, Joe, you remember I was trying to do that story on the rise of Charlotte, and we were calling Bank of America and calling Wachovia.
And you did that horrible thing down when we were in Atlanta about the new Civil War.
The new Civil War. Remember? It was a device to do something.
It was totally divisive.
But the funny thing was the guys at Wachovia wouldn't talk to me.
They wouldn't?
I'd met Ken Thompson.
Nice guy.
We had a nice conversation. He said, call me anytime. I'd be happy to sit for an interview. Nice. Called him up. Not happy to sit for an interview.
When?
And the issue...
How long? Was this when we were in Atlanta?
We were in Atlanta. In the weeks up to Atlanta, we called him back, and he said, no, we're not going to be too much talking now.
About Golden West.
Yeah, Golden West was an issue. There were a whole bunch of issues. But this issue on the dividend I thought was interesting, where Beauvais says, don't cut the dividend.
Said that about Citigroup, too, though.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not they should do, they would do it is a different question. Whether or not they should do it. If you need to raise money,
if you're raising capital left and right, why are you doing
everybody's doing it.
Leave it for when you really need it. I mean, why
but it's, it's like you're taking money in with one fist and
hand out with the other.
Why keep selling stock to raise capital, which then you get diluted and the stock goes lower and lower, and the dividend is 7%, 8%, 9%, 10%, it just becomes obvious it has to be cut. I don't know. You're going to do.
I would think, and I think this would be a big part of the metric, and maybe we'll get Dick Beauvais to comment on it next time, that the cost of capital of cutting the dividend is the cheapest capital out there. I mean, it's very inexpensive capital relative to what else you would need to do if you go to Abu Dhabi or where these other guys have gone to raise money, that they're not necessarily, they're paying through the nose relatively. I mean, they're either giving up a convert on that, and a lot of times these things have convert resets, which means that they have to raise more money. Anyway, it just strikes me, and by the way, you have the Fed out there, the FDIC, every single one of your banking regulators is out there saying
you don't have enough.
For God's sakes, cut the dividend, raise capital. We were with Sheila Bair last Thursday, and she was saying just that very thing. We need them to cut, get their books in order, take their hits.
Well-capitalized banks, right? You don't want to start worrying about what's going on.
That's exactly right. Now, she seems to suggest that for the given situation that they have now out there, that she feels the banks are relatively well-capitalized, but that doesn't mean they don't need to raise new capital right now.
Yeah. All right, on the phone, let's get to Kevin Fitzsimmons of Sandler O'Neill. He covers Wachovia. We've had a couple of guys on getting some comments. Everybody seems to like this Jenkins guy. Is that your view too?
I have met with Ben Jenkins a number of times over the years, and he's someone that has led the one business line of Wachovia that seems to be their main strength, and that's that general bank, the retail commercial bank, and he's pretty well thought of out there in the investment community.
Back to the roots, huh? You think that if they weren't sure, why don't they just go with this guy right away? That too big a step, you think?
Well, you know what I think? I think it signifies that they need change, and really probably radical change at the helm. And even though Ben Jenkins has run this business line, I think they need someone to take the company in a new direction, both in terms for employees and for the investment community. And you could argue that even though Ben has run this one business line, he's been in, part of the executive suite that has gotten the company in this position. So I think they just need a new face.
At the time, Kevin, was it a good move to buy Golden West? Did it seem like it?
I mean, in hindsight, the obvious answer is no. That to make that kind of step into to bulk up your exposure and to pay that kind of a price, and I think Wachovia went into it knowing there was a downturn in mortgage coming, but having no idea it was going to be of this kind of magnitude.
Hey, Kevin, Steve Leisman, given the comments by Ken Lewis of Bank of America saying he's had just about enough of investment banking for the moment, and Wachovia's forays into investment banking, what is the future right now of those two Charlotte banks and their efforts to compete with some of the New York banks when it comes to investment banking?
I think you're going to see them pull back considerably, and maybe Ken Thompson initially didn't make that as clear as Ken Lewis did, But I think the one business that they seem to get paid more of a multiple for is this traditional banking, taking in deposits and making loans, and that's what they do best. And I think you're going to see them focus much more on that.
Does that mean a new round of layoffs? By the way, a lot of their investment banking is based here in New York. Another round of layoffs perhaps coming from Wachovia as part of a restructuring?
I think you can't rule it out. I think they're aggressively in that mode already, and because that fixed income CDO issuance type of business is really just not coming back anytime soon. So can it get to a more aggressive pace than it is right now? It sure can.
Did some of the regulatory problems, what does that indicate about management and whether they had their arms around the operating procedures of the bank? Was that a problem, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I think the reason the stock is set to open lower this morning, I think some people might have thought it would open higher, is people are wondering what changed from 3 weeks ago till today, and when they separated the CEO and chairman role. And you can't rule out...
Yeah, they already did that. I forgot that. They already did that. That's where Lanty Smith got to be chairman. So they already slapped his wrist, and now he's just...
Right, and what you can't rule out is just, we knew about the big earnings pressure. We knew about the capital raise. We knew about the dividend cut. But in the weeks that followed after that, the company disclosed that they had a justice investigation into money laundering with Mexican and Colombian companies. You had a settlement with the OCC over a telemarketer scheme that involved some of their customers. You had a write-down on BOLI assets. So all these things reduce the credibility of the
pesky little telemarketing.
As much as a surprise as it was this morning, you sort of you look back and you're like, yeah, that makes some sense.
Well, these guys, you start thinking of them as like the front man of a group, like the front man of the bank. You think of Ken Thompson.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess what you can't rule out is do the regulators get a little more involved with these issues that we just highlighted about the controls of the company.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kevin.